restrictions on public gatherings. The town of Alton has moved from in-person meetings to remote audio participation meetings. To remotely attend the meeting, audio only, visit our website, www.alton.nh.gov, for telephone access and remote access instruction listed under the news announcements on the homepage, or telephone the Selectmen's office, 603-875-2113 or 603-875-0229, between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. for the dial-in code and meeting ID for each Selectmen's meeting. This time, gentlemen, we're only here for a few items. There's no pledge of allegiance, a moment of silence, so I am going to ask you to stand for the pledge of allegiance. And Laura, would you do us a pleasure tonight?
Sure. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Then I'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Second.
Motion by Mr. Holt to approve the agenda as submitted, seconded by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? Being none, I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
2, meeting purpose, operating budget recommendation. Coming before you right now, Article 9, the town operating budget. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriation by special warrant articles and other appropriation voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session, for the purpose set forth therein totaling $8,210,619.34. Should this article be defeated, the fall budget shall be $8,099,570, which is the same as last year, with the exception of the water budget. The certain adjustments required by previous action of the Board of Selectmen or by law or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13 X and XDI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. This article does not include special or individual articles. Address not recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 3-2, recommended by the Budget Committee, 6-0. Tonight, gentlemen, we are here to ask if any of you gentlemen originally that voted against this budget, if you would be inclined of changing your vote and making a motion a second to that fact. This represents the 2% that the Board of Selectmen requested. The Budget Committee went along with it at their budget hearing after last week's meeting.
What does the 2% represent dollar-wise?
What do you mean? What does it represent?
It's right here on your spreadsheet at the last page.
Oh, okay, that's
$167,000.
The spreadsheet there.
Yep.
Okay.
$563.
That is recommended. It's not cast in stone because this is the bottom line budget. So a lot of these I did get from the town administrator last week. Laura went through it during the week. And after having this week to go through it again, there is another way of doing it, getting to the same number, but I think that's for another time in the discussion.
I would change my vote as long as we do not take it out of any payroll.
Well, none of it comes out of any payroll except for the Board of Selectmen. That's the way it is recommended.
Yeah, there is a couple.
Payroll all through it.
Fire department call wages.
There is fire department, but it's a
13.
reduction in staff, that's what it is. But if you want to know my idea, there is another way of getting to that. The reduction that came from the fire department came from the fire chief, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
It did.
I had nothing to do with that one. The police department, I talked to the police tonight, and he was fine with what was being taken out of his. Mr. Roberts, I did talk to, he's still suggesting if you take the $81,000 from the grader and the loader, you take the $38,000 that he had there for, which you all recommended there should be no new hires if we're cutting the budget. And you go along with, had it here with me earlier. The loader and grader, $81,000, because we own it as of this date, because we made the last payment. New driver, $38,000. The police department's budget of $34,149 is $153. If you take in and add the fire department's recommendation from the fire chief, that's $19,997. That's $173 and $173,146, which I believe we needed $162, correct?
167, 563.
So you could actually put $6,000 back in from those recommendations, back into the regular budget. This leaves 90% of the smaller budgets alone, allows them to do everything they needed to do. And as Mr. Roberts explained, what Caterpillar had explained to him, and it hadn't gone out to bid, the new lease, and new grader and loader would have probably been around $51,000 in this year, but it has to go out to bid, so you really don't know what the price was, so they bid it. They put it in the budget at $81,000, not knowing where the bids would come in at. So he believes even next year that this could be done again next year. We could go 1 year without it. So, I mean, if you did that there, the only thing you're reducing is the call firefighters line.
Election wages,
Like
library wages.
Was overtime, yes.
library wages.
That came from the library department, not from the town administrator, them. It came from a part-time for library, correct?
That is correct.
You can't find $167,000 to cut without touching wages or anything like that. And there's something wrong. And I mean, we can go through this all the time, but I will not vote for a budget if you're cutting any wages.
Wait a minute. Hey, this is only a suggestion. It still can be up to the Board of Selectmen to meet on this next week to say where they want the cuts to come out of, okay? You ask the department heads to give you recommendations. Department heads did give recommendations. Not all of them were used, all right? Ours is a bottom line budget, so we can come back and say, this is where we think the results should come from, and then instruct it that way. And leave wages alone, Virgil. But the other thing is, if you're gonna do that, you would also have to look at the new EMT position, because that has not been taken out of the budget. And if you remember at last week's meeting, we all said, if we're gonna cut the budget by 2%, there should be no new positions.
That's right. That's right.
So I did not have that factored in those figures I just gave you. So if you put that in there, you can put most of the wages back in there. But tonight, we're here to vote on that bottom line, which it is where it should be, but there's other ways of getting to that bottom line.
Right.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Okay?
Just make sure he sees it.
So I would, two is, I do have to bring up one more thing, and I didn't want to bring it up, but when I talked to you about health last week, about reducing family plans, 2 family plans, you said those weren't budgeted for anyways because there were so many open positions.
Correct.
Yet I saw you had health and dental in there tonight.
Yep, I can explain that. You want me to? Okay, so we had, one of our vacant positions has been filled, and that employee did not choose the health and dental plan.
That's the mechanic that went into the truck driver's position?
Nope, it's the person for the recreation department. So with them not accepting a plan, we could take a little bit of that, and still if somebody adjusted, we would be okay.
All right.
The other 2 have not been really filled yet.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Because when I saw that, my thoughts started.
That was a last minute, we needed $5,000.
Talking to Mr. Roberts too, is with the truck driver taking the mechanic's position last week with the new truck coming in during the snowstorm, you still have a truck driver be able to get into the truck to go plow because he wasn't, the mechanics have always plowed. So we're covered on that aspect. So this is something for you guys to take home and look at. I'll have the town administrator put it on the budget for next week, where you think the reduction should come from. But we do need to vote on this budget tonight, because otherwise we're going to deliberative session with a 3-2 vote.
Because Kenny's, we haven't hired contracted plowers, but he's got it in there for 13 something. That could come right out.
On the highway.
Yeah, he's got contract flowers in there.
13,
He already did have.
yeah, they're in there. Because I deducted them.
No, it's $1.
That's
It only has $1 on it.
That was to keep the account open.
Only has $1 on it. This one is from 12/1/20. Yeah, there isn't 13.2, there's only $1.
Okay. Better check my board.
Or get together with Laura and have her print you out, updated ones from 12/20. But there's other ways of getting that without touching the wages.
Updated ones from 12/20.
Which is what I'm interested in.
But the other thing is, we have to remember, we agreed last week in the consensus, we didn't take a vote on it, that if we're gonna cut 2%, we weren't gonna fill any new positions.
Right.
So you gotta think about it this week, if you wanna continue with that or not. And Laura's still got her hand up trying.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that there are no employees that are losing wages, like being on unemployment. That is not where these cuts are coming. This is like the library one. She's now down a person, so I don't think she's gonna hire for a
Oh.
few months. That's gonna recoup that, you know what I mean? I think the same thing with Jim. He was over a little bit this year. He had leftover, so he's just cutting his wages call. He's not, nobody's reducing their pay.
Most of
You
these,
gotta write that down.
most of these cuts that you have came from the department head. We worked with them and asked them, what can you do without? You need to get rid of X amount of dollars, and this is what.
And
So that's something we gotta write down on the side of this as for the library, not hiring a
I'm
person,
not upset.
but letting person,
No, but you
Person,
also gave
go.
us carte blanche. to
Yeah,
do
I
what
said,
you
here,
want.
do what you want.
Right.
person's gone,
Bring it to the board,
I think
Right.
she's just gonna reduce.
but after thinking about it, after.
and not hire that person.
Seeing what you came back with, you didn't come back with the loader and the grader out of it, and you didn't come back with the EMT out of it,
Right,
which I was kind of strong on the EMT,
I know, but
because the Board of Selectmen, but you were very strong on keeping the EMT.
we did what we felt was right, best for the town,
But I
but
have a right to agree to disagree.
that's right, absolutely,
I'm
yep.
not upset.
And you
Don't
all
get me
have the
wrong.
right to change these,
Don't get me wrong, a lot of these were mine that I recommended,
Yeah.
I realize that. But after thinking about it, after giving them to you, and realize it's still a bottom line budget, maybe there might be an alternative way,
there's always an alternative way.
an alternative motive too.
I mean, you could leave this the way it is, and if you got into the middle of the year and noticed you needed more, you could always do a line adjustment and vote. I mean, it's
From one line to another.
Fluid.
Well, that's up for you, gentlemen.
That's fine too.
But that's it for my discussion. I don't know about you, gentlemen. Somebody will make a motion in a second.
Just, conversation. First of all, kudos to the department heads for this, okay? I'm very happy about this. Seems to me when I first made my motion that night, the 2% cut, I said excluding wages and benefits, and that's the way I definitely want it. So we can make it, I don't care about our salaries, you know, but I don't care about that. That's some wages that could be cut and it wouldn't upset me. But, as long as we can work around, you know, we have an agreement that we're gonna start working on a new benefits package, which hopefully will be better, not only for the town, but for the employees as well. So in this, if we can accomplish it without cutting wages and benefits, I'm happy. And again, kudos to the department heads for doing this.
Oh, definitely. And I felt the same way. I wasn't really for it at first because I was concerned with wages.
Right.
For the employees. I think the employees have worked very hard this year. The departments have worked very hard this year, especially with the COVID situation, and all departments have pulled together and given it 110%.
They certainly,
And I wanted to make sure that reflects into this year's budget.
right, they certainly shouldn't be sacrificing wages for, after all that.
No.
So,
I think we all agree on that.
Here, here.
But my only concern is the stuff we got in front of us tonight is strictly suggestions.
right.
I mean, things happen during the year, where, but, you know, you have to make it work. And you do that all the time.
Okay, one of you three need to make a motion in a second.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we approve the town operating budget with a 2% cut, and it comes to, this figure is right, I hope, $8,210,619.34. Is that right?
Do I have the cents? Are we voting on that, or are we voting on,
Be 619.
are we voting on, that confuses me.
See,
I thought
this
we
is-
should be voting on the 167,563.
We're only voting on the $8,210,619.
See, there's the low one.
That's what the budget is. The 2% shouldn't even be in there right now.
Okay.
The 2%
All right.
on IM is in that figure.
But you shouldn't put the 2% in there right now, because you're not voting on the original budget. You're voting on this new budget, which is $8,210,619.
Okay.
That way, when
34
it,
cents.
that way, when it goes out to the ballot,
It'll
the
read,
budget committee and selectmen will agree, and it makes a big difference with the people.
Right. I thought we'd have to make two, in other words, two votes, this one and that. Sorry. Okay.
so that'll change that to 5-0, right? If everybody approves it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, the bottom figure, you mean, Board of Selectmen?
Yeah.
That will change that figure. We have that before the ballot gets printed. That's why we're here tonight. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Holt to approve the town operating budget of $8,210,619, seconded by Mr. Whitman. Discussion. Being none, I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Holt?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Wentworth, yes. Vote is in the affirmative.
Now it goes out 5-0.
5-0.
5-0.
It'd be 5-0.
I think that makes a big difference.
Oh, I agree.
It definitely will.
It makes a big difference with the
The
people.
only thing, gentlemen, I would ask that you look at these, the way they're written tonight.
Yes.
Before deliberative session, you come up with, the board comes up with a plan with the recommendation where the reduction should come from. Because I will not get up and defend something that I don't know what's going to be cut, like I had to last week. That was a very embarrassing moment you gentlemen put me in last week, the three of you. Because when I asked by a taxpayer, what are you going to cut? I don't have an answer for it. Very embarrassing point for me last week, and I was very upset about it. So that's why I came in, me and Liz sat down and worked. I had some ideas where it should come from, and I threw a couple of them out. But the majority of the board next time wants to do something like this, then you ought to come up with some recommendations where you want it to come from before it goes to a public hearing with the budget committee, and you have no answers to give the people.
Well, if you remember, Mr. Chairman, when I brought this up initially, you told me we can't do this because the budget committee owns the budget now.
And that's the way I was led to believe by the budget law until the town attorney sat here and said, you could recommend. You couldn't change it, but you could recommend.
Recommend.
Is that correct? Recommend, the word? Recommend.
Yeah, and that's what we
Couldn't
did.
change it. You could only recommend. But you still came up with an idea of 2%. You still should have an idea at the meeting with department heads twice and agreeing to a budget. Just because you don't follow the bottom line down as we go, shouldn't put me in an embarrassing position of where the cuts should come from.
Oh,
And if you want to embarrass me like that again, payback's a bitch.
oh, ain't it?
Excuse my language.
I'll fill in for you if you want.
No, it's not a good position to put you in, and it's not fair.
It was very late in the budget season.
Yep.
No.
Is there any other business deemed necessary tonight, Liz?
No.
Okay, gentlemen, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Rochelle to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. McDonald. I'll poll the board. Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mr. Whitman?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Holt? Yes. Wentworth, yes. Both in the affirmative. Thanks, folks, for coming in tonight.
Well, make you stay late.
Yes.